Welcome to this presentation on how are payments calculated for feed purchases and extraordinary expenses. Feed purchases and extraordinary expenses are eligible under the Livestock Feed and Transportation Drought Assistance Program. This program was created to help drought-impacted livestock producers to maintain their breeding herds over winter. The Livestock Feed and Transportation Drought Assistance Program has recently been enhanced in several ways. Extraordinary expenses have been added as eligible. These are expenses that you declare and for which you do not need to submit invoices or proof of payment at the time of application. Eligible extraordinary expenses include hauling water, renting extra pasture and cropland, harvesting extra acres for livestock feed, temporary fencing for supplemental grazing, and transporting feed that you produced yourself from distant location. Dates associated with the program have also changed. The eligible purchase period has been extended to April 15, 2022. So invoices dated as of April 15th or earlier are eligible. The application deadline has also been extended. It is now May 13th, 2022. The way the payments are calculated for feed purchases and extraordinary expenses have also been enhanced. The producer share or deductible has been eliminated. The producer share is no longer subtracted from the value of eligible expenses that are reimbursed under the program. Payments now will be equal to 70% of the eligible feed purchases and extraordinary costs claimed up to a maximum per head payment. The 70% coverage is better than the net coverage previously available when the producer share was being applied. Maximum per head payments have been increased. For beef cattle, dairy cattle, bison, elk, and horses for PMU, the new per head maximum is $270 per breeding head, up from the previous $250. For sheep and goats, the new maximum is $50 to $4 per breeding head, up from the previous $50. The program payments are subject to limits and caps that are applied on a per breeding head basis. The level of extraordinary expenses that will be included in the payment calculation are limited to $133.33 per breeding head for beef cattle, dairy cattle, bison, elk, and horses for PMU. For sheep and goats, the limit on extraordinary expenses that will be included in the payment calculation is $26.66 per breeding head. The total combined assistance available for feed purchases and extraordinary expenses combined is limited to $270 per breeding head for beef cattle, dairy cattle, bison, elk, and horses for BMU, with the limit for sheep and goats being $54 per breeding head. Here's an example of how to qualify for the maximum per head payment for cattle, bison, horses, and elk. You need to submit a combined total of feed invoices and extraordinary expenses of $385.71 per breeding head. This amount can be entirely feed invoices, but can include up to $133.33 per breeding head of extraordinary expenses declared. Of this amount submitted, we take 70% to give a maximum program payment of $270 per breeding head. Here's another example for sheep and goats on how you can qualify for the maximum per head payment. If you are to submit a total of feed invoices and extraordinary expenses that add up to $77.15 per breeding head, you'll be eligible for the maximum per head payment. This dollar amount can be totally feed invoices, but bear in mind that you can include up to $26.66 per breeding head of extraordinary expenses in this total. For the expenses claimed, we will take 70% of that amount and issue the maximum program payment of $54 per breeding head. Here's an example of how to calculate program payments for an individual farm. In this example, the farm has 100 cows. The producer has no feed expenses, but does declare $15,000 in extraordinary expenses. For this farm, the maximum assistance available is $27,000. Based on the 100 cows times the $270 per head cap on program payments. The assistance available is calculated by first determining total eligible expenses. They're calculated as the feed purchases, $0 in this case, plus the allowable amount of extraordinary expenses. You'll notice that the extraordinary expenses that have been calculated are less than the $15,000 declared. That is because extraordinary expenses are limited to the $133.33 limit on per head limit on extraordinary expenses. So for this farm, the maximum that can be included is the 100 cows times $133.33 for an eligible amount declared of $13,333. Added together with the feed purchases, this gives total eligible expenses of $13,333. The program payment can then be calculated as 70% of the total eligible expenses, so that is 70% times the $13,333 in total eligible expenses to give a program payment of $9,333. You'll notice that this amount is less than the $27,000, so the producer could potentially receive further support for additional expenses submitted. For this second example of calculating payments for a farm, we once again start off with the same 100 cows. The producer still has $15,000 of extraordinary expenses to declare, but also has $8,000 in eligible feed invoices to submit. Once again, the maximum payments available, assistance potentially available for the herd are $27,000 based on the per head cap. We calculate the total eligible expenses in order to determine the program payments. In this case, it is the feed purchases of $8,000 plus the allowable amount for extraordinary expenses, which once again have been limited based on the $133.33 per breeding head, to give a total eligible expenses of $21,333. The program payments are then calculated as 70% of the total eligible expenses, so the payments are the eligible expenses of $21,333 times 70% equal to a maximum program payment of $14,933. And you can see that this payment is still less than the program cap, so it is potentially more assistance available if more invoices are submitted. The change in how the payments are calculated is retroactive to the beginning of the program. For any previous claims that you've had, the program administrator will automatically recalculate them by eliminating the producer share and applying the new maximum payment caps. Based on this recalculation, the administrator will send you a check and payment letter for the increased payment on your previous claims. You do not need to request this or submit any new information. This will be automatically done for you. For any future payments or any future applications, the new payment calculation will be applied. Further program information and an application package can be obtained by visiting the Manitoba Agriculture website, calling our toll-free line, or visiting an ARG and MASC service center.